Hello, welcome to a VoxCommando tutorial. Today I will be covering a topic that has been requested a few times. It's an intermediate level topic that should be useful to anyone that's been using VoxCommando for a little while and has some familiarity with the program. And the topic is, how do you combine multiple configurations? So if you're already using, for example, VoxCommando with XBMC, and you want to add support within the same configuration to be able to also control MediaMonkey. So of course you could add commands manually, but since there's already an existing configuration for MediaMonkey, I'll show you how to import those commands and then how to manage the problem of differentiating which program you're talking to. So there are a few ways of tackling this, but the first thing we need to do is to actually combine the two configurations, and then later we need to worry about the logic of the context of which program you are trying to control. So I'm going to assume that you've got XBMC installed and you've got MediaMonkey installed. This is a good idea anyway to get familiar with how the two different configurations work. But I'm going to start with XBMC and then import the commands from MediaMonkey. And the reason I'm going to do it in this order is that setting up XBMC is a bit more complicated. There are passwords involved, and so I'm going to assume that you sort of worked out all of the kinks in XBMC. And then setting up MediaMonkey is pretty much as simple as enabling the plugin and importing the groups. So, for example, in my case, I'm not using the standard SQLite database. I'm using the MySQL database on this computer. So I know all of this is working. So you can see I have all of my XBMC groups here. Now what I want to do is import my MediaMonkey groups. So everything in my MediaMonkey folder here, I'll find voicecommands.xml, and all of the groups are contained within this file. So what I could do is drag this directly into my tree and have it import everything that's in there into my current voicecommands.xml. But instead of doing that, I'll show you a way to have a bit more control over that. This command editor window is actually a multiple document interface, which means that it's got the ability to have multiple files open in different windows. So if I unmaximize this, I can see that this is actually a child window of this MDI. And what I can do now is I can import my MediaMonkey groups. Instead of importing it into this tree, I can import it into the MDI, and it will open up in its own window. So this is a warning because we have not yet generated payload XMLs for MediaMonkey in this configuration. So it opens these all up red to make sure that I'm aware of the problem, and it won't be a problem. We'll generate the XML later. Another thing I can do here is go to tile vertical, and this will line them up side by side. And then I can drag over the groups or the commands that I want to use. So first off, the Vox commands and the show help groups we've already got, and I don't think there's anything that we need from here, so I can just get rid of these to make it a bit easier. And then we have a command to launch MediaMonkey. We don't need the whole group because we've already got a launch group over here, so I'll just drag the command over and add it to this group, and then I'll get rid of this empty group. And then we just want to bring the rest of these groups over. You could verify at this point, look in, see if there's anything that you're not using. Possibly You might decide that for XBMC now you're only going to use it for video, you're not going to use it for music, so you might go and take out the song related commands, but I'm going to leave them in because I want to show you how to manage conflicting commands and how you'll be able to tell VoxCommando which program you're actually trying to control when you give an ambiguous command. So I'll leave those in for now. It is important to note though that these payload XMLs can often contain tens of thousands of items, and they do consume memory. So if you're not using music for XBMC, then you really should try to trim things down a little bit, because loading all of your songs once for XBMC and then loading all of your songs again for MediaMonkey is going to increase your load times and use more memory. For me, it's not really a problem. I've got 8,000 songs and a fast computer, so I can have both side by side in this example, and everything should be fine. So I will finish just by bringing all of these groups over. And if you wanted to leave the groups in here, for example, you could do a control clicking instead of just regular clicking and dragging. But I'm not going to save this other file anyway. So again, you could have just dragged the entire XML into your tree if you think that would have been less work, but I thought I would do it this way to show you how to be a bit more organized. All right, so I clicked discard changes there because I don't want to destroy that file. And then we can maximize this guy again. And I will save. So we've got all of our groups here, but we have one problem, and that is that we only have a few plugins enabled here, and we don't have the MediaMonkey plugin. And you can see on our drop down as well that we're missing the MediaMonkey plugin. So the first thing I'll do is go into Options and enable the MediaMonkey plugin. Save everything and restart VoxCommando. So now we've got that. And the next thing I'll do is just test that our launch commands work. Launch XBMC. Launch MediaMonkey. Okay. And I will generate XML for MediaMonkey. Now when I go into edit, we no longer have errors on these commands that use the MediaMonkey payload XMLs. So I'll minimize these to avoid the clutter. Now, this is where we can see that we have commands in the two configurations now that are overlapping. So for example, we have the play song command in each group, and the phrasing is almost identical in these. Really the only difference is that we have the optional the in the MediaMonkey. So if I said play the song blah blah blah, VoxCommando would actually probably know that I was talking to MediaMonkey. So that is one way that you could handle it. You could edit your phrases also to say MediaMonkey play the song X, and change this one to say XBMC play song Y. But that's a bit cumbersome to have to do that. It makes more sense to let the computer figure it out based on which program is currently active. So we have different ways of doing that. Oh, and by the way, if you did want to use the phrasing to tell it which program you were talking to, but you didn't want to have to edit every individual command, you could go into your group properties and override the prefix for that group to differentiate between the two programs that way. That way you could say, you would edit all of your XBMC groups and put in the prefix of either XBMC or whatever you would want to use to indicate that you were controlling XBMC. But that's not my preferred way of doing it. My preferred way of doing it is to turn the XBMC groups on when I'm using XBMC and turn the MediaMonkey groups off. And vice versa, if I'm using MediaMonkey, I want to turn the MediaMonkey groups on and turn the XBMC groups off. And I'll just show you a demo. Right now we have all of our MediaMonkey groups on and all of our XBMC groups are on. And if I do a test, play artist Buck Jones. Stop playback. So it's working, but who played the song? Play artist Buck Jones. So we can see it's MediaMonkey. I have to bring up MediaMonkey. We can see that it chose to execute play artist Buck Jones from the MediaMonkey play music group, but the alternate was the XBMC command to do the same thing. So here you can see the issues. Maybe we wanted it to play in MediaMonkey and maybe we wanted it to play in XBMC. And what if MediaMonkey wasn't running and it thought that we were addressing MediaMonkey? Then nothing would have happened. So what we need to do basically is turn these groups on and off depending on which program we're using. So how can we do that? Well, one way is to go into the group properties, and you'll notice that we have this field here, active only for process. So if I look at if I hit Control Shift Escape to bring up my task manager, we'll see that we have the MediaMonkey process and we have the XBMC process. So I could write here XBMC, and then this group, XBMC extended actions, would only be enabled when XBMC had focus. So I'll demonstrate that now. These types of changes you do need to save and then close the editor for them to take effect. So now you'll see that XBMC extended actions has been turned off. And if I focus XBMC, that XBMC extended actions gets turned back on. And then off again. So I could go through each of those groups and edit the properties to tell it that it's only active for the process XBMC. If you only want to do one or two groups, this might be a good choice, but we're talking about 10 groups from XBMC and a bunch of groups from MediaMonkey, and then maybe we might want to add more later on, so maybe there's a better way of doing it. Another problem that we have is that in the case of MediaMonkey, the process name is supposed to be MediaMonkey, but sometimes when MediaMonkey launches, it actually gets named MediaM tilde1 or MediaM tilde2, and then that system doesn't work anymore. So one other option that I should mention is that in MediaMonkey, I could say active only for process MediaMonkey if I wanted to, but as I said, that might not work. Or you can use the exclamation mark to indicate not. So I could say that the MediaMonkey group is only active when XBMC is not focused. And I'll demonstrate this now. So the basic control. Oh, I need to save this and close it. Okay, basic control now is active, but when XBMC becomes focused, basic control gets turned off. And then again, when I unfocus XBMC, now this will get turned back on. There's a delay of up to 3 seconds in detecting when the program changes focus. That's set in your options under events. This is the interval, how long it will wait before checking. So basically I have it set right now so that every 3 seconds it will check to see which program has focused, and if the focus has changed to a new program, then it will go through and process those settings. At that time, it will also be generating these focused and unfocused events. So here, focused XBMC, maybe it's easier if I show you here. So if I focus XBMC, you'll see an unfocused event for the old program and a focused event for the new program that was focused. And if I switch to MediaMonkey, you'll see that XBMC is unfocused and MediaMonkey becomes focused. So these we can use to more efficiently turn all of our groups on and off based on what program we're using. And I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to collapse all of these, and I'll create a new group up here called Disable and Enable Groups for XBMC and MediaMonkey. So all I need here are 2 commands, one command to switch to XBMC and another command to switch to MediaMonkey. And when I say switch, I mean to change which groups are enabled. So I'll start with disable XBMC and enable MediaMonkey, and then I'll create another command for disable MediaMonkey and create and enable XBMC. So which events do we want to use? When XBMC is focused, we want to disable MediaMonkey and enable XBMC. Now we have a question of whether we want to use for enabling the MediaMonkey groups, do we want to do that only when MediaMonkey is focused, or do we want to do it whenever XBMC is unfocused? And I'm going to choose to do it whenever XBMC is unfocused, so that my MediaMonkey commands will continue to work even if MediaMonkey is not the foreground window, because maybe MediaMonkey is, I'm listening to music while I'm doing something else, browsing the web, reading my email, or editing a document in Office, something like that. So I'll use the unfocused XBMC. And another thing that you may want to do is have your XBMC groups off by default, and you can do that here. This is the state that the group will be in when VoxCommando first starts up. So you could go and do that. Make sure that XBMC is not on until you actually launch that program. So I won't do all those right now. So we have created our empty commands and we've assigned the correct events. And now we need to actually write the code to disable those groups and enable the other groups. So I'll edit this one, disable XBMC and enable MediaMonkey. So in version 1, we have the commands enable and disable group and enable group star and disable group star. This star refers to a wildcard. It means that you can use only part of the name of the group. So if you're using version 1, you'll need to create a disable group star, and you would put in disable group XBMC and enable group MediaMonkey. Now the disadvantage of doing it this way is that this will match any group that contains MM, and it's not case sensitive. So you might have another group here, for example, VoxCommands, that contains the string MM. What's going to happen, this is going to be very bad, is that it's going to disable that group as, sorry, it'll enable and disable that group as well as all of your MediaMonkey groups. So the solution to that would be to actually rename your groups here and use something more unique than just MM. And what I've done in the past is I've gone and changed them to MM underscore for all of my MediaMonkey groups and to XBMC underscore for all of my XBMC groups. In VoxCommando 2, I've deprecated these commands and I've created a new bunch of core commands called group. So we now have group disable regex and group enable regex. And by the way, the group disable and the group enable are the same, and they require you to give the entire correct command name. So you would only be able to turn one group on and off using those commands. So if I use group disable regex, which is only available in version 2, I can now enter a regex string here and make it more precise while still matching a bunch of different groups. So in regex, I can use correct to indicate the beginning of the string, followed by XBMC, and then \s is a space. And I can do the same thing for MediaMonkey. I can say starts with /space. And that way, we definitely won't be accidentally matching MM, because in this case, in VoxCommands, the MM is not at the beginning and there's no space after it. So that's safe. And now I'll do the same thing here. I want to disable my MediaMonkey groups. Correct MM space. And I want to enable my XBMC groups. Again, you can do this in version 1, but you need to use the VoxCommando groups, and you may need to rename your groups to make them more unique. Now I can, without actually using the events, I can test the actual command here by clicking on save and execute, and you'll see that, or better yet, I'll use the play button here to run them so I can try both. So if I do this one, it'll disable all of our XBMC groups and enable our MediaMonkey groups. You can see these have all been turned off. And if I execute this one, it'll do the opposite. It'll disable the MediaMonkeys and enable the XBMC groups. And as you can see, the VoxCommands group is not being affected in either case. So this is perfect. All we need to do now is close the window so that the events are actually going to trigger those commands. And I can bring up XBMC, and you see these all turn green, and these all turn yellow. And then I can bring up MediaMonkey. And apparently I made a mistake. So what did I do wrong? Just look here again. I'm not sure what I did wrong. We better have a look at the history window. Let's try one more time. XBMC. Everyone's turned on. Oh, I must have, when I was editing my command, I did make a mistake. This is not the correct one. I was using group regex. All right, XBMC, MediaMonkey, working. And you'll also notice that if I go from XBMC, even if I don't focus MediaMonkey, if I just switch out of XBMC, the same thing will occur, which means that I can use my MediaMonkey commands while it's in the background. Now I will just do some quick tests to show you that it's working. So right now we should be able to, let's say, arrange these here so that we can see them. All right. So I'll give a command to play an artist, and because XBMC is in the foreground, it will hopefully play here. Play artist James. So it correctly did it in MediaMonkey because I had switched focus over here.
I'm gonna slap you.
Now XBMC. Play artist James. Play artist James.
Now playing So Long Mary and by artist James.
Who is this?
This song is by James.
Music stop. Stop playback. Play artist Buck Jones. What song is this?
Sun's gonna shine.
Who is this?
Buck Jones.
Stop playback. Okay, so this should cover all of the basics. Obviously, there are some other nuances that you might run into, but if that happens, please join us on the forum and we will get you sorted. Thanks for watching.